Hello all, and welcome to tonight's review, which I am dubbing the T.S. Eliot The Wastelands review. I was reading my copy of T.S. Eliot's thing last night, and I was a little bit drunk because it was my birthday. And since I was smoking a cigar, I was sitting outside, and I left a copy of the book outside, and that's actually a pretty bad thing because it's a 1951 edition of it. It's not anywhere near mint. It's actually in pretty poor condition. But, you know, it's still something that's kind of valuable to me, at least. So, when I realized that, I was actually prepping for the review, and I was like, oh, wow, I should probably go and get that. So I checked outside, and it was still out there, and miraculously, it hadn't been too windy, and it hadn't rained at all. So it was still in, you know, decent shape. Well, decent enough shape. As you can see, it's a bit of a beat-up book here. But 1951, you know. I have some book repair tape that I'm going to use on it. But enough about that rambling. What we are going to be reviewing tonight is Samuel Adams' Bonfire Blonde. Let's read the label, shall we? If you like smoky beers, Bonfire Blonde is as good as it gets, with a rich vein of smoke running from the first sip to the last. This pale gold, medium-bodied ale is balanced by Samuel Adams ale yeast and our favorite Mittelfrüh hop for a tart taste and finish. Cheers. This is 5.5 ABV. Now, I've never had a smoked beer before, so this was my first, so I don't really have anything to compare it up against. All I can say is that this is not a Rausch beer, which is a traditional smoked lager. It is pretty definitely an ale as opposed to a lagered beer. Excuse me. So, let's get to this, shall we? This beer's already been sitting outside for 15 minutes. Gave it a fairly vigorous pour. Pretty much a golden yellow, clear golden yellow, not very carbonated, very mildly carbonated, with a slightly off-white, kind of fizzy, quickly receding head. Definitely smells smoke there. It's more like the smoke of a smoked meat than a bonfire. Very dry malts, almost like, well, not really crackery. I mean, it's tough to say toasty. It's sort of like toasty, not like toasted bread, but smoked bread, I suppose. Kind of flowery hops. You still get a sense of the hops, but number one defining characteristic of the smell there is smoke, or smokiness, a smoked aspect, I should say. There's also a little bit of citrus fruits there, too. Dry crockery malts from the start. What's immediate is smokiness isn't what's first there. You definitely get sort of citric tartness. And the smoke kind of rises almost immediately after that front there. Lemony tartness, I would say, definitely a lemon aspect. The smoke starts near the front there, rises in the middle, kind of diminishes but doesn't clear the palate in the finish. Neither the malts nor the smoke finish, clears the palate, kind of lingers there, along with a slight hop bitterness and slightly floral aspect from that hops. The mouthfeel is fairly thick, but in a very interesting sort of manner. It's not heavy on the palate, but what you interestingly get from this smoky, or as I prefer to say it, smoked aspect, is a very much an umami sense, and that sort of savory sense on your tongue, on your palate, that is very reminiscent of a smoked meat. Let's say that sort of smokiness adds a very round sense. You got this sort of sour, you even got a hint of sweet towards the finish there, when the malts kind of kick in, the residual sugars and the malts kind of kick in. I can't really see somebody pounding this, just drinking it by itself because of, well, the flavor aspect is definitely something that you would get palate bombed pretty quickly on after one or two of these. But I can see it being an excellent pairing with smoked meats, barbecued meats, or especially smoked barbecued meats, of which most popular one here in Hawaii is pipi kaula, which is sort of a smoked meat that is then barbecued. Pipi kaula is not really eaten as a meal. You cut it up really into small bits because it's kind of on the chewy side, and you just kind of eat it as I guess you would kind of say like a Spanish tapas or an appetizer. I would definitely go for a small plate of pipi kaula and this beer. Not very much dimensionality to this, not very much nuance. You definitely get that tartness there from the malts. You definitely get that big smoke there. Not really complex. I don't really know how to say how it stacks up, whether the style is, whether these smoked beers are pretty one-dimensional or whether they develop a lot of complexity. One-dimensional isn't a bad thing. A lot of styles here are fairly simple, but they're good in that simple sense. Things don't have to be complicated in order to be good. Some simple things are actually excellent, and some simple things are actually pretty darn difficult to make. Making a good Pilsner, which is very simple, doesn't deviate much from the standards, is actually a fairly difficult thing to do. I can definitely see this as not being a cup of tea for a lot of people, just in the same way that, IPAs are not a cup of tea for a lot of people, and sours are not a cup of tea for a lot of people. This is something that I can go for. I'm notoriously unpicky when it comes to beers, as you guys well know, or girls. I don't know if all of you have, any of you 20 to 30 people are like female, but don't want to be gender specific here. Where was it? I got sidetracked there. I'm not picky. I'm not picky when it comes to beers. And honestly, it'd probably be very difficult to go and find a smoked beer outside of this one in the autumn pack right now, because I haven't found any smoked beers, and well, I know they do sell some, but I just haven't gotten around to it. It hasn't been very high up on my list, and maybe I should explore it a little bit. What's been holding me back is the fact that they're usually single bottles and they're pretty expensive, bomber size ones, or even smaller than bomber size ones. And one of those bottles usually costs as much as a 6-pack or more. So, Bonfire Blonde. Blonde ale, kind of on the tart side, with smoked malts. Interesting flavor. Probably would go well with smoked meats. Give it a shot if you're willing to experiment with something new, and I hope to go and widen and broaden my experiences with this particular style of beer, or styles, if you divide smoked beers from the traditional Rausch beers. That's your beer review for tonight, folks. Cheers.